you have wandered across the lovely show of Gussied Up Magic, and I am Ashley.
I am Misty.
And I am Pat.
Today we're going to be talking about astral projection and prophetic dreams. That one gets stuck on your tongue. So,
What's that mean?
it means that you have dreams and you see things in your dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that may come true.
Yeah, that too. Anyways, let's talk about our day or this week. What all has happened in our week? We'll get started with our topic in a little bit. So this week, we have actually learned that doing a basement, which is going to be our new studio, me and Misty. So it's very lovely. If you don't dig a trench around it, then there's a possibility that water or fluid gets in your basement.
Fluid. I like that.
Yes, we live next to a graveyard, fun fact. So I really, truly think, knock on wood, I want them to live forever. But, I think that's why we have an extended amount of life years on our animals.
Yeah.
They live to the very last expectation. We're going to say that. So that is a fun thing. And also, I'll tip you off with I know this is a do-it-yourself situation right now. There's different types of cements you can put in your basement. My hands are chapped and very manly, like from calluses, because you don't have to necessarily get the regular Quickcrete that comes into a bag at the Lowe's because it's got larger gravels in it. So when you're trying to close cracks in your basement, it really grinds your hands down. There is some without that gravel in there you pay a little extra for. Fun fact. What did you...
She didn't, guys.
I found the other.
She did.
Yeah, we did towards the end, but that works way better. Yeah. So just fun fact of that. So what all did you do this week?
This week I'm going to tell y'all something. I came across a show that I didn't know I kicked a hornet's nest. So there is a new show that has came out that is for, it's on Netflix and it's called Deliver Us. Now it's got like Monique in it and some other people and stuff like that. And I was like, this looks really, really interesting, right? Well, when I went to go look at it and I posted it on my Facebook, of course, we go to social media every time. Guess what somebody told me? I thought it was just a regular story about a mother, a grandmother, somebody who their kid had been possessed. Isn't that the normal story? Like, all the way back at The Exorcist. That's just the normal line of everything. But when I posted it, this is where it gets juicy. One of my friends come on and said, Zach Bagans. This is about the house that Zach Bagans had in Indiana. And supposedly it was so intense and this and that and other that he bulldozed the house. Now they're saying it was because he released his own documentary and stuff. I don't know. This is just through the social medias, guys. And it was in competition with this movie. I'm like, they got some award-winning people on here. I think one of them is Glenn Close, Monique. And it's all about, this possession. And it's about this house. I'm going to tell y'all a little secret even more. So when me and Ashley first had a radio show years ago, right? We were brought on by these two guys, JC and gosh, I can't remember that. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry if I can't remember. I'm just going to Shadows on the Wall. Okay. That was the show. Those guys had a paranormal team in Indiana and they had investigated that house before Zach Bagans actually bought it. Isn't that a kooky turn of events? I'm just throwing that out there. That's how the world works. And I thought, wow, because I remember them guys talking to us about this house, saying we got the real story on it. And then Zach Bagans bought it and then he tore it down. And that has happened also. I want to get y'all's opinion.
They did a movie about it?
Yeah, the one I keep asking to watch, The Deliverance. I want to tell y'all something. I want to get your opinion on this because this has happened. The paranormal, we're going to throw that out there. Of course, we are in the middle, we are metaphysical, we're witches, we're all these things. But the paranormal is still something that people group us in, right? Because we're outside of the normal. So I have a question. There's another guy who bought a very a notorious place. And he did a study himself there for a year, bulldozed it. Now he's writing a book about it, or he's going to cultivate this. Is that something, do y'all think, your ladies, we're going to see that people are buying these? And now I'm just going to say supposed, because nobody got to get in once they bought it, right? They had all these experiences. Nobody else gets to have these experiences. Then they bulldoze it. So there's nobody to say, did it really happen? What is y'all's take on that?
I think that's a brilliant idea because then I could say everything came into that house. I could tell you, damn, and then hold on. Can you do a different? I mean, I'm not saying they did this. I absolutely.
Lord, we're going down a deep hole here, y'all.
I'm not saying they did this, and I'm sure their books are true. I haven't read them. I don't know.
Well,
who
some of
they
them
are.
haven't come out yet, so.
Well, I'm sure that See, so right now I'm saying this because I'm blindsided. So if it comes out and they're like that shit ain't real and it's really crazy, then you can't hold me accountable because I haven't read it or anything. So ignorance is bliss. So, anyways, I'm just saying if I had a haunted house, that's probably if I knew I was going to have a #1 bookseller and I could do whatever I wanted, I'd bulldoze that thing in a hot minute. But I'd have to have a whole bunch of hype beforehand, just like the Zach Bagans things. Have him come in there and then.
Well, he owned the house. He was one that owned the house, and then he bulldozed it. Said it was too much for people. What do you think, Pat?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I will tell you something about this. Zach Bagans has a museum out in Las Vegas, and I have been there. So I go into this place. It's got some really interesting artifacts. One is a mirror that was Lon Chaney's mirror.
Yes,
right?
yes,
Which is really, really cool. And supposedly you can look into that and see things. And then I went down I think it's downstairs, if I remember correctly. And they've got this, like, it's a drape or something, but it's made out of metal, right? Just to hide what's behind it. So it's like it's got this build up to it. So then the metal, thing starts to raise. It's like, oh, and you're standing there and you see like part of that house with some of the earth that they pulled out from the ground that's there. So they have part of that house, separated from the public by this, I guess it's a screen, by a metal screen that will raise up so that you can look at it. I'm going to be honest with you personally, and it was just dead. It was dead. The energy of what I saw was simply dead. It didn't have any energy to it, if that makes sense. And it could be where it was built, bulldozed, most of it, and they preserved this, brought it here, along with some earth from that place, but it was separated from the time and space, if you will, of where the activity took place. So, yeah, so I don't know. I will tell you that I think for the long haul, that if you have a haunted location and it is haunted, you're going to, if you're just looking at money, you're going to make more money because you can sell the site to movie crews. You can have a book #2. You see what I'm saying? But if it's just a house that nothing is happening in, bulldoze it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well, or if you want to make yourself a mega star, right? I battled the demons in the house. I could only withstand this. None of y'all can. And now read my book for $19.99 and da. See what I'm saying?
If you have stuff like Ghostbusters happening and you got a lady like in your basement of the, library and she's walking around and it's so haunted, why didn't you turn it over to a scientist? Why didn't you let someone study
actually, these people are scientists.
Who the hell made Who
made We're going to get our ass roasted on this so bad.
If he's available and liking it, you are great. I think it was the best idea ever. But otherwise, I'm like, let's take a little logicality,
Well, I will tell you one reason is scientists, for the longest time refused to even try to connect with or investigate this sort of phenomena because it could make them the other. There was a man. He was a psychiatrist, and he taught at Harvard University. And I wish I could remember his name offhand, but he became very interested in UFOs. In fact, he traveled to South Africa, I believe it was, where all of these children had seen a phenomena that was a UFO and had actually connected with them. And he wrote about this and said, this is not an anomaly that did not take place, based on their reactions, based on the fact that all these small children, when they were interviewed, gave the same story. And the flashback on this man, because he had reached outside of traditional academia, was intense.
Yeah.
And there was actually a movement I had read to separate him from his position, but by other academics, and that never took place. I mean, this man was at the top of his game, but because he went outside, so there's a price that academics may have to pay in order to do this. Now, I do love the fact that we have places like the Virginia Tech, I believe it, or is it University of Virginia? They have the Department of Perceptual Studies, and they study things like mediumship, like past lives. They delve into the realm of the paranormal, and I have great respect for all of these scientists because that's what they are. They work on empirical data when they can get it. And I have great respect for them because they are working outside of normal academia.
I'm interested in socially how things worked out when, we were given the information that there is actually aliens. How socially did that work out for the people chasing aliens and, the ones wearing the aluminum foil hats and they're like, aliens are real. And everybody was kind of like, oh God, that weirdo. Did anybody actually give them a, you know what, you were right? Or they're just like,
Oh,
they're bitter and angry now.
no, they
Like,
got them aluminum full hats and went running up and down the road with a
they're like, I
cowbell.
win,
Woo!
I don't know, but
You know, somebody somewhere was like,
like a
"I told
scientist
you,
or something.
I
I'm
told
not.
you."
Would they even be like that, or they
Oh
would
God,
just
I
sit
would.
regally in a chair and they're like,
I'd be like, I would. I'd roll right up. I would be right beside someone, and be like, "So did you hear about?" I'd give them a paper with it said, where they were, because there was one that came out that was really like defying of this UFO, which they've changed the name now, y'all.
yeah.
They don't call them UFOs, okay? They're a something. I don't know. It's some kind. I don't know the name. If anybody else does, y'all can.
I think it's UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena.
I think I knew it had an A in there somewhere. Well, I'm telling you, they even changed the name because think of the surrounding the name of the UFO that automatically gives people like, oh, here comes the aliens. So they changed the name. But when that pilot, y'all, everybody's seen the footage of he's trying to go behind it, and it's literally going so fast. But since then, I mean, we've seen a UFO ourselves, and we were on vacation. I started Googling as fast as I can. It was the
It's been a
three
few
triangle.
times though. You've
Yeah.
seen it in Myrtle Beach, which is a really big hot spot. And
I
then we
didn't know
also
that.
saw it when we were on the boat to Chichen Itza, which they
Yes.
actually, their gods that they believe came down looks, and they have a lot of UFO phenomenon down there. They, when you break it down, it does sound like an alien because
Yeah.
how they made themselves look, because they were trying to make themselves godlike. They would do things to change their skin color. They would make their head elongated, and it's really interesting when you look at it from that type of thing. But I want to know socially what happened. Are they still the weirdos? And then it's so interesting, us as like a whole nation and all these people just kind of been like, oh yeah, they're real, okay, and they went about our business. Like,
hasn't it boomed though, guys? It really has.
Well, one thing I have to correct myself. My husband's, he's the UFO person, and he says anomalous. It's unidentified anomalous phenomena. So, give full credit to Ken.
I hope he was in your ear. I hope it was like a earpiece. Nope, wrong one. Wrong one. You're like, oh no, I can't.
Well, they did. I mean, what is the break? Like, they really took the name, right? I'm not afraid of a name that, what is it, like the abbreviation of it? UFOs. Ever since, you remember, like in the, I don't know if it was the 30s or 40s, and that APB kind of thing came out, and they were like, oh, here comes the aliens and stuff, and then they retracted and said, oh, that was just a joke, that was just a show, that was people went crazy. I remember that, like being told those stories of that. It's just really crazy how, we've adapted, and because they changed the name, then it's okay. Everybody's gonna be okay with it.
Well, I would like to mention too that a few years ago, this guy Luis Elizondo came out, and he was in charge of the UFO program for the Pentagon, and he's the one that really got the He's one, I think, that actually had that piece of video that you're talking about when he came out, and started talking about this. But I mean, he says they're real. And, even when you look at our scientists, they will say that, who was it? Oh my goodness. It was oh my god, he wrote, the history of time, I think. Anyway, he said, that the probability is there, but would we really want to connect with another, another humanoid, possibly, people who would be so technologically advanced and maybe evolved also, that so that they would look at us like we were cockroaches,
Yeah.
basically, so much less than them. So I don't know. It's interesting. Do we really want to contact? Or a lot of people think that we have the watchers, and that they really watch over humanity. And then you have people talking about all of these different life forms, like the Nords, which are supposed to be really tall and thin and blonde and all of that. And we have the reptilians who look very reptile-like. And so you have many different life forms out there. I don't know. It's kind of exciting when you think about it.
You got one guest I would love for us to have on eventually is a MUFON representative. Woo, you
Are they
said
really even around anymore now that they're like,
yeah, I would
they have
definitely think
Space
that,
Force
but
and stuff?
I think MUFON is still.
Okay.
I get a newsletter. I ain't gonna lie. I signed up. They have local meetings, guys. Okay, but I'm gonna tell you, it really is fascinating when they start setting down and telling you this thing. Like before, right? Like he would talk about how quickly he had to get to the airport or wherever the pilot saw or whatever. If the government got to him before he could get to them to get an interview, it was done. They didn't know nothing. That happened numerous times. He would talk about like so many cool things, but the thing that really got me is he would talk about the bumps in our intelligence, or what, like Teflon. Like before Teflon, we were using cast iron, right? He said then all of a sudden there was a bump. That's because he believes it's a bigger source of it. This gentleman did. He said that, the government is involved with this. They look at what companies they believe would do good with like some alien technology, stuff like that. He believes Teflon is something that they pushed a little bit. That stuff is pretty cool. We went from cast iron skillets to slipping off of, the pan. So these are some cool things that he was talking about. And I was like, wow, what if it's already been trickled down into our society and stuff like that? And we're just now looking back and going, man, is this really something that happened or could have happened? I don't know. This is
I think
very,
Elon
very.
Musk is an alien.
I don't know. What do you think, Pat?
I think good, bad, and different. Whether you love him or you hate him, the man is a genius. He is.
It's true.
And he's very forward thinking. He's saying that we need to have options on this planet. And and regardless of whether you believe in that, keep in mind that they estimate that our own sun, which is a very small sun, but it's supposed to go supernova in about 12 million years. Is it 12 million? It's soon. I mean, by time standards, So during that time, it might be a good idea to have options to get humanity off of this planet and onto other planets.
Or at least like we know that things can be grown a certain way and things like that. Give us a space station. Just don't invite them aliens, like on aliens. But I'm all for that. I mean, like, hey
I thought
guys,
they did. I thought they were trying to do gardening up
they
there.
already have all kinds of space stations in my mind. I don't know if it's real. Y'all don't clock me on that. But in my
I've
mind,
been
I think
watching a
there's
lot of sci-fi movies, and I believe in my.
Pat, we never got to what did you do this weekend? Look, we're 20 minutes in. Yeah, this weekend.
All right, I got to correct myself, and I knew this from I took astronomy when I was in college, and that is the sun is a small sun, so the core is too small to actually supernova, but it'll basically burn out. I mean, it's going to die. And they're looking right here. I'm seeing about 5 billion years from now. So that's a long time to get off this planet. I've seen numbers too that were shorter than that. So it's interesting. But he is forward looking. You know, what if we do overpopulate this Earth and our resources become too little for
I
the
think they
people that
already
are
have.
here? And in some places they already are. And of course, we're already talking about water shortages in places that it wasn't there maybe 20 years ago. So it is something to think about.
Yeah.
I had kind of what some would call a boring life this last week. My husband, I actually put a garden out this year. So my husband went and he built me this really cool thing to dry out my herbs. It looks like a
Oh,
big screen door, but
yes.
it's got edges because we live in the mountains. I live on top of a mountain, so the wind is constantly blowing. So the wind can blow and it doesn't blow my herbs out. How
Oh,
cool is
that's
that,
so
right? And
Right.
so, yeah, so he made that, and I got in a lot of tomatoes this week. I have a lot of cherry tomatoes, so I've been putting those up and freezing them. And then I've been drying out sage, and I have sage and English thyme. I have gosh, man, this is terrible. Oh, I have basil, lots of basil. I love basil. And sage. I've got two different types of sage. One is garden sage, and the other is what I would call standard sage. And then, gosh, lavender, just a whole bunch of things that I've been starting to dry and put up. So yeah, that's been my week. As far as television, we've been watching this really cool show. It's called Nova. What is it? Nova Nero, and it is an Italian series. It's 1 year in length, 6 episodes, I think, and it's about witches, which is really, really cool. Yeah, y'all have to check it out.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, you know, the words mean black moon, which is really cool. Luna
Oh,
Nero. So very cool. And it takes kind of a different look at witches. So I'm enjoying that very much. And so anyway, for anybody that is interested in watching that, I think it's a good watch and certainly worth your time.
oh gosh, yes. We have been checking out the From that we have talked about. Yes. Got through the
Yes.
first season. I recommend this on anybody. I was
Second season. Then we heard the third season's coming out this month, so we timed it just
yeah.
right. We caught on to it a month ago,
Yeah.
and now we're into it. I'm like, man, I don't know. There's so many elements of it that I'm like, God, you can think of this like witchcraft and
Mm,
protection. Like I was saying last time, so I'm pretty excited. Just
wow.
started the second one, so we haven't got too far, but
I'm really excited about that. That was really good. The different perspectives and things like that. And I realized how close mental illness and sanity really are. Like that little line of if you give somebody who's doing something peculiar in a certain situation, somebody will think they'll have mental illness. But if you know the story behind it, then they're not crazy. They're preparing for what could be or what has. Like just really looking at that aspect of it, I thought was really cool.
I haven't got too far into it. But it would lead right into the prophetic dreams
Yes.
and things like that, because the character actually has, or he thought was dreams and things. So one thing about the prophetic dreams, I can't
Love
even get that
you're
out.
trying
Yeah,
to
I'm trying.
pathetic.
I'm trying.
Pathetic.
It's like
Prophetic.
pathetic but prophetic. But anyways, so when you have a dream and you can foretell the truth and or the future, that actually there was one that the earliest date of that is in the Bible. That is a constant thing that they would talk
Joseph.
to him and have that. Yeah, it's actually.
Is it Joseph? I think it was Joseph. He did
Yes.
it for the king. Oh
I thought
Lord.
that was another one.
I should have been a preacher, y'all.
I mean, I guess. Yeah.
Actually,
There's been a
I
lot
did,
in different in every like culture. Those.
Well, he got that nice jacket his mama made him of different colors. His family hated him, threw him, or his brothers threw him down a well, and then they took him into slavery. But he was so good at foretelling with these dreams and stuff that the king made him an advisor, and they actually bypassed a drought and everything.
Well, do you
Good old
know
feller.
that 17.8% to 38% of people have experienced at least one cognitive or premonition dream?
How much?
It is 17 to 38%.
Wow.
That's
That's a
pretty
good
nice.
amount, isn't it?
I don't remember my dreams, which I think that is supposedly a disorder or something.
No.
If you can't remember your dreams, sometimes someone has told me that, and I'm like, well, I guess I got that on my list of problems too. But anyways,
I don't think so. I had a professor one time that he said that of psychology. He said, "Listen, if somebody tells you they can't dream, then you watch them while they're sleeping, which ain't weird at all, guys. You know what I'm saying? And then when their eyes start moving really quickly, you wake them really quickly and say, "What were you saying? Or like, what was going on?" And they're supposed to be able to tell you because they were deep in it then.
I have this one guy at work that talked about dreams, right? And he was like, "Oh yeah, I used to always have dreams of blah blah blah." And I can't like he randomly mentioned it, and I was like, "Yeah, I don't dream." He's like, "Well, you need to dream, and as soon as you wake up, get yourself a notebook and you write it down." And he told me this long step, and I'm like, "This is what I tell people that have those dreams. You know, the ones that know that they get more foretelling dreams and things like that."
Mm-hmm.
So he was telling me this, and I was like, have you ever heard of Carl Jung? And then I looked it up, and that's actually the Jungian method of going about it, just to write down your prophetic dreams or any dreams for that matter, just to kind of understand how your subconscious mind works. So there's a thin line, I think. Well, not a thin line, but between astral projection and prophetic dreams, or fortune dreams, whatever, you know what I'm saying. But anyways, so do you think that we go to the same place? Do you get those messages?
Pat, what do you think?
Okay. Do we go to the same place when we're having an astral projection experience
Yeah.
and like doing a prophet?
Dream.
Well, that's interesting. I'm not sure. I will tell you that I do astral projection, but I've never had prophetic dreams. It's like when I have, and by the way, for some people, using the word prophetic or prophecy instead of like psychic, that's maybe a trigger for them because, for some people, prophetic means that you have received or we are giving the utterance of God, that we have seen something that God has given us to see, and then we give that over or share that where it will help people, like a community or a country, that sort of thing. Whereas psychic, of course, we know that's abilities that go beyond what we consider the norm. I don't know. That's interesting. Um,
Mhm.
I could see where, you're astral projecting and you could be in another time and place actually seeing this so that when you come back, it would seem like a dream for you, right? That's an excellent question.
I actually thought in the beginning when I was, having my experiences and stuff, I just thought they were dreams and I thought they were horrible dreams. And then the more I got going down this path, I realized, whoa, this isn't what's happening. Astral projecting and remote viewing. Let's throw that out there, because that is a big thing. A lot of psychics will say, "Oh, I can remote view." That's the same thing as astral projecting in my eyes. Astral projecting is when you project yourself into another situation.
Mhm,
We can see like we are there. We are aware of everything that's going around.
mhm.
And I have seen numerous people say, "Hey, can you remote view in on this?" And they'll ask a psychic, and she walks them through and stuff like that. To me, that's the same thing. What do you think, Pat?
I think it's very much the same thing. I think that astral projecting is something that we've known about for a very long time, but the military came along and said this is something that we could use. These are psychic spies. That's how they looked at it. And there was a man. His name was Ego Swan, who was very early involved in this. In astral projection and had an incredible rate of hits, so to speak. But to get back to that, I think they're one and the same. I think that this whole idea of remote viewing is simply a militarized version, repackaging, if you will, of something that's been around for forever, as long as humans have been here.
I agree. I mean, like I said, it was talked about in the Bible. I mean, that's one of the oldest books, right? That's one of the most popular books, whether you're a religious person or not. It's something that it was even talked about in there, you know. So in Virginia, we have the sleeping prophet, right? The big
Yes,
um
Edgar Casey,
there you go, out in
Virginia
Virginia
Beach.
Beach. Yep.
Mhm.
He has a whole and I would really like for us to go out there and kind of check that out sometimes. He would they offer classes and all kinds of stuff, but this man did most of his divination and stuff. He did it through dreams and things like that. I think that is amazing, you know. What is your most moving experience while you're sleeping, like whether it was astral projection, whether it was a dream that foretold some future? What was yours, Pat?
Oh, wow. I've had a lot, but the most unusual one I had, when I ask to project, it's like I'm lucid dreaming. I'm awake. I am aware. I know I'm in the sleep state. And so I'm sitting in this restaurant, and it wasn't all fancy hoity-toity like you saw in The Shining, you know? It was just a normal restaurant. And they say that you cannot, in the dream state, you can't make up faces. I don't know if that's true or not, but that you won't see faces that you haven't seen in the real world, you know, when you're awake. But I'm sitting there, and there is a bartender, waiter, and he's behind the bar, and I'm sitting at a table, and I look at him, and I say, "What pla where am I? What place is this?" And he looked me in the eye, and he said, "Oh," he said, "this is where the dead dwell." And so I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, all of these people start appearing, like they were already there, but all of a sudden, I'm seeing them. And what was super interesting about this is they were from all periods of time, you know, the 1920s, the 1800s, and the Renaissance, and on back and back and back and back, you know, to the beginning. And it was so interesting to see that. But this is where the dead dwell. And I felt very comfortable. I wasn't afraid at all. And it was like I made connection, you know, with these people who had passed. And what's really interesting is I had a near death experience when I was 13 years old. I drowned. And we talked about that before. You've had one too, Misty. But, you know, I have read in NDEs that people who have one often start connecting in a deeper way, in a more full way, if you will, to the other side where the dead dwell. So it's interesting, you know, having had that experience and then fast forwarding many years and then having that dream. What about you? I shouldn't call it a dream, that experience, because it's very much an experience.
One thing that I wanted to touch back on though, is that when the army was studying these people, right? Because that is something that happened in the 70s and the 80s, and just in 2001 they declassified the documents and they called it Project Center Lane, and they actually took them and they were trying to study them. And the other place that we forgot to mention was the Monroe Institute, or maybe we did, the Monroe Institute in Charlotte, Virginia.
Oh yeah, that's the one we were talking about of Charlotte. But then we also the
Edgar
sleeper.
Casey.
There you go. Yeah.
They had one called the HEMA Sync technology, which was audio wavelengths that kind of like coincided with the left and the right side of the brain. I don't know if they released that or not, what it was, but I've also read a book about the psychic warrior. That was one that I read, and I was really captivated in that because they put him through certain trainings a lot like this. And this is what I was like, wow, it's got to be legit. And halfway through the book, though, he went batshit crazy. And he started cheating on his wife, and he put that in the book. And he's like, I didn't even know who I was, and this and the other, because they had him go under this and kind of scam through places. And he kind of lost his mind a little bit. So it was really interesting to kind of read that. And like I said, in the beginning, it was very structured, the beginning of the book. And I was like, wow, I could really understand. And with the army going in and studying that. So it was, the only dream I've had that was prophetic or, you know, foretelling was I wanted to do a show that kind of asked the question of, do you think it's the same thing? Because I believe that it's when you kind of take your guards down and you're able to get out of the physical realm of everything. My experience was my grandfather kind of came and showed me who actually robbed him, or the mastermind behind this whole thing. And it was a very different dream. And I've only ever felt that way when I try to astral project, as in I would be sitting in a place and I'll imagine my physical or my mental body standing up and walking around the area and seeing what I see from that point of view, not the physicality of it. So astral projection, I think that one is funny because I've been around some weird people astral projection.
Oh, yeah, man.
And usually it was drug related, and man, if you can get some funny shit on that, I'll tell you that. Because they were I am all about, recreational use of I'm not all about it, but hey, if somebody else wants to do it, that's cool too. But when somebody is toking on a fatty and they roll over, they're like, oh, help me, I'm leaving my body. And they're talking. And then we sat in a teepee, and it was a lovely time, and it was my teepee. But we were sitting there, and all of a sudden they started, you see me? Did you catch me? And they're sitting talking to
This
each other.
is Pocahontas.
Yes.
Oh, God. They were chasing each other around, and I'm like, dude, I'm just sitting here trying to be chill. Like, I'm just sitting in my tent. And they were really chasing each other mentally. They're like, I see you. I'm in the castle. And I'm like, whoa, this is a time not to use drugs for me. I was like, I've been sober ever since. No, I'm joking, but it was very interesting. You gotta find, I don't know, maybe is it?
We have been shamed apparently, and a lot like that we can't meditate, right? Which I find a lot of people don't meditate the way that this person was forcing it. That we can't astral. Like we did the Estes. Is where you put the headphones on and stuff, and it was a haunted location and things like that. And me and Ashley had already started picking up on stuff. We were like, look, this was a couple that was fighting in this house, right?
I did get stuff on that, but I didn't
no, hold on. Listen, man. Talking about the astral projecting. So this is what they claim to be able to do. What is this? What did we say we were going to call the psychics, the bad psychics? I can't remember in the first show, but anyway, whatever. So as soon as we come down and we're like, man, we heard these people fighting. It was really cool. Everybody was really cool, and they were like, "Did you see us? We were all in your face.
Oh,
we were all in your face."
That.
And I was like,
no,
what? And they were like, me and such and such were all up in there in your face while you were doing this. And I was like, I don't believe so. Like, that's when I was like, man, things just got, this is the same thing.
Yeah. You know what? I'm joking, forewarning. I'm joking because, some people might take me seriously, and I'm really not. So sometimes they would be astral projecting while we were sitting around a business table, and all of a sudden they'd start snoring. So they were really, apparently they were on a motorcycle, but they were zooming through that air. I'll tell you what, they would start snoring, and then all of a sudden, well, do you have anything? They'd be like, oh, yeah, she's in my body.
I got back in my body.
Yeah. Woo, how to catch me. And at one point, another person would touch them and be like, I got you.
I hold you in the body.
Oh, God,
I don't even know.
It was a fun time.
Well, for us, because we kept it in until we got to each other, and then we were like, did you see that shit? Now, don't get me wrong. There's probably many people who could do all this, but this was a little different, guys. This was very theatrical. This was...
What was, is it the mountain monsters that were pretty dramatic? It's like meeting the mountain monsters trying to do psychic stuff.
I'd watch that show. Yeah, I would watch
I watched it full time. And I was like, wow.
I watched it in real life, guys. I watched it in real life.
another thing I want to mention is the circle back around. I know we were talking about aliens in the beginning, and then we're talking about this and throwing it at you. One of the things that the military did about the the legit ones, not the ones that are holding each other in their body physically, and it was a total cluster. But anyways, it was a psychic cluster confusion. Also, well, anyways, so they actually got the people from the military coordinates, and one of the coordinates was they wanted to know what Mars looked like so many years ago, and they were able to foretell it. They were like, there's structures, there's people here, they're tall, they are wearing like silk, but it's really light. So they actually were able to kind of see aliens. That's one of the projects that they were working on in the military. The other thing is, how could you put yourself under? Pat being a hypnotist, that also is another thing I was wanting to lead into, as in hypnotizing and astral projection and the dream state. Is, do you all go into the same melting pot to get these messages because you're in an altered state of mind and you're checking out of your physical body? That was really what I was trying to aim at this show. But how can you put yourself in that state of mind to astral project?
The thing that I would do is go into self-hypnosis. That's the easiest thing to do. And it's when you think about it, like one of the things, one of the techniques to actually go into that state that can help you to release the soul from the body for astral projection is called the Monroe effect, I believe. And what you do is you try to stay lucid through the entire process. So as you're going to sleep, you remind yourself constantly, I'm going to sleep, but I will be, cognizant, I'll be aware. And you work on that until you're able to get into the sleep state and be able to release your body. And I will tell you, as an astral projector, that sometimes you'll feel a vibration occur in your body. It's like it comes from the core of your body all the way out into your limbs. And they say that that's when your body is ready to jettison, if you will, or you're getting ready to jettison the soul or the spirit. So that you can astral project. And one time I woke up, like, I would have thought I was having like some sort of seizure. I mean, I was shaking so badly, but usually it's just like a vibration that you'll feel. So yeah, work on that. Trying to get into a lucid state of dreaming, if you will, where you are aware of it. So you want to be in a state of deep relaxation. Put on music if you want to before you go to bed. That helps with people. Think about the state you're in whenever you're driving down a road and you've missed your turnoff. We've all done that. That is when you are in a state of light self-hypnosis. So that's what you're going to do, is relax and be aware. So that's one technique to get into the state where you can actually do, astral projection.
Missy, how did you get into the state to get any dreams or astral projection yourself?
Okay, so mine was a little bit different. I would love to be able to say that I went and did it and wanted to do it. Mine started when I was really young. I would see these things and I couldn't get out of my dreams. That's the biggest part with me is Pat was talking about how that vibration. I have woke up like shaking, like ready to go, like jumping out of my body. It's because when you seep back in, that's what's happening. It just as you go, you seep back in, and it's crazy. Mine was, it started with night terrors, and then I realized, hey, wait a minute. And then I started getting dreams of like my grandmother who had Alzheimer's before she passed, about 9 months. She came to me in a dream and was talking. Because lucid dreaming, you got to look that up because you are very aware. Like I have been in places, the astral projecting happens and then they call it lucid dreaming because you're very aware and in control of these dreams. But all I can be in those dreams is control of me. Like I could see the ground. I can feel how hot it is. I could see what everything. And people say you don't dream in colors. I've heard that's some bull crap. I've always dreamed in colors. The people Pat mentioned before, like, you're not supposed to be able to see people. I see people who I am living a life with, and then I'll be pulled out and come back. But the scariest thing for me was not being able to get out. Those are really scary because it almost is like they let me come to my life and then I know something's off, and then I'll be like, whoa, whoa, this is, and then whatever is holding me there says, no, you can't. And I have to keep on and keep on. Pat, you were talking about how you had this dream and they said, this is for the time of the dead and or the people of the dead. And then, you said that there was all different types. I've had that dream too. I couldn't get out. I was in a big line with people, cheerleaders. I'll never forget a basketball team. My guide at the time, who was like a Viking, you know what I'm saying? Like people were talking, I could hear them talking and they were like, is that her mate? And they were like, no, he is a relative of hers. But he didn't say anything to me. He was just there for support. And we just kept getting closer and closer. And it was so many crazy things. But when I went to, you were talking about granddaddy, when we had to, it was like our bodies automatically took over and all these things that had been happening to us for years kind of came together to get answers for our family, right? Even though they didn't want them. When I went to find my granddaddy, and I know what happens when my soul is yearning for somebody, and I go find, I kept hearing, you're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be here. This isn't a place for you. I have found my Uncle Rodney because when people pass in our family, I tend to see them afterwards in some sort of form. They will come to me, we'll talk. And it's just most of the time I wake up, either they're advising me on something or something. And I found my Uncle Rodney. And it was crazy. And he said, do not touch me because because he passed of cancer. And he was like, you'll take this on. It will make you sick. Do not touch me. So he wouldn't let me touch him. And he said, you ain't supposed to be here. You're not supposed to find me. I am still puttering around. I'm still going around and stuff. The people here are helping me acclimate to this side. And then the next thing I know, before I could even try to touch him, he got in this little, he was just gone. I saw him drive off. It was like, so it was crazy. So these are my dreams. My biggest part is learning in my life how to get out of it, because it's very scary when you can't get out. And it's happened a lot better for me and stuff like that as I've got older. But I swear to goodness, if you got a kid that has night terrors, don't just shut that down. There is something bigger that's going on there. But yeah, that's mine.
A few things I always read how to get out of these dreams, as in, I can't remember the one, and they were like, if you do this, and you had already tried it, and you're like, it didn't work.
Oh, it was, I tell people all the time, you have to have a tether, like make sure you understand like this bracelet. I would really feel this bracelet before I went to bed. I would really make sure I knew all the things of it. But the reading, like if you can read, I can read in my dreams, y'all.
That's
and
what
I'm
dyslexic.
If you
can read, then or you can't read in a dream. And then I've also, you never see your phone in your dream. I've never seen my phone.
I see everything in my dream. That's what
makes it. Do you look at your phone?
I don't. My phone's not with me, but I see everything. Like I was in a Middle Eastern country, and I am not Middle Eastern by any chances, but I could feel how hot it was and how the family was disapproved that I was the mate for their. Like it's so crazy, some of this stuff. But my thing is if you can't get out, tell your family that there's a trigger. Like my throat makes a
been
well, they say that when we are out there, it's a silver cord that is connected to our spirit, and that's what leads us home. And if something happens to that cord, then it's like being an astronaut in space. You can drift away and not make it home. But I got to tell you something weird. Now, this was a weird one for me, and it's like I woke up. I'm completely cognizant, and I have jumped off a table in a spaceship. Okay. All right. And I'm like running down this hallway and I put my hand on the wall. And I am not a ufologist. I don't follow this. My husband does. But I had my hands on the wall and it felt organic. It felt like it was alive, like, yeah, like organic. And I'm being as quiet as I know how to be. I mean, I'm totally awake, just like you would jump up right now and start running. That's what it was like for me. And I start to go towards this doorway. The door, it's like a hatch and it's open. And I start to uh, go towards it and I hear something behind me. And that's how, this ended. Well, I thought, how weird is that? That just doesn't make any sense. So I told my husband about it. He said, oh, yeah, Pat. He said, people have reported experiences of being taken and that the spaceship inside feels organic, like it's organic. Ugh. So anyway, I've had that experience. So if anybody asks if you've been taken, and one other time I was coming back from from astral projecting, and I don't know how it is for you, but I'm paralyzed right when I'm going into my body. I can't move, right? It's like my spirit can't move. And I see myself and I'm going down. The reason I know I'm in the air is I can see the door and I'm above the door frame, right? The top of the door frame. And I feel myself just going down into my body. And as I do, I hear a voice say, "Do not look to the right." And I have really good peripheral vision. And I saw these little like beings standing there in the room. And then I hit my body and I was out. Boom. Just out like it's like somebody hits you in the head. You're super aware, and then bam, you're asleep. I know.
My cra-
Mhm.
I, like, isn't it
Oh
weird?
God,
how-
I did have a dream.
You did?
Oh shit, I
Yeah,
forgot. That's
yeah.
so Misty. Every time it's kind of a joke for me. I mean, I make a lot of jokes about everything. But anyways, that's how I, accept reality. Is
With
it's a joke.
Pat saying that
But,
right there, this triggered this, by the way.
So,
Yeah.
every time Misty, like when she has one of these dreams, we stay the night at a lot of haunted locations. If it ain't popping ghost wise, then we're just like, yeah, let's get a few shut eyes. And sometimes you rent these locations out all night. So sleeping at a haunted location, I've done so many, and I've slept at so many, and I'm like, there's been situations that I'm like, in my mind, I've built barriers and I've had protection in this area, and I'm like, okay, we're not going to do this, we're not going to go across this area, we're not going to do this, blah blah blah, but Misty, I have woken Misty up, and we were at a haunted location, and I'm in the bed, and I've already stepped on a piece of glass. My foot was messed up. I was ready for bed, right? And all of a sudden, I hear Misty on the floor, like, and I'm like, oh,
that's how it is.
Christ.
I can't move. I can't, like you said, Pat, when we see, we can't move. But I am very aware of everything in that room. I knew she was sleeping somewhere. Something
She's
had,
like,
this
help,
thing had, yeah.
It was like she was yelling, and I'm just sitting there like, oh God, she's doing it again. Shut the hell up. There's other people in this house. And I'm talking shit to her. I'm like, wake up, shut your ass up. And she wakes up, she's like, thank you. You saved me. And I'm like trying to get her to shut her up. But yeah, she thanks me over I do. Saved her. My husband,
everybody. Because what happens is that's the bad part about the psychic part of it, is in the mediumship, is we can see these spirits, right? Well, when I am in between and I am astral projecting, I am laying there. This thing banged open the door, and it was I told them, I said, be careful of these stairs. Somebody's fell down and broke their back. What I didn't know is that I was going to see that lady that night. So I was looking at my phone, but I fell asleep, and I didn't know I fell asleep because I just kept looking at my phone, and I'm seeing the room. I see where Ashley is. I see everything. All of a sudden, something bangs open the door, and this thing crawls on top of me, and it's this far, and it's a lady that's decayed, and she broke her back falling down the steps. I was so petrified. I was so scared. So on the other side, I am screaming. I can't get this woman off of me. It's just like I could just feel her breath that close to me. And in the real world, and I could see Ashley. I'm like, God, help me. But in the real world, all they hear is this noise that comes from my throat. So she's like, shut the hell up. And it's no time. Y'all don't understand. It's like a door opens and I'm like, thank you, Lord. That's what it sounds like on the floor. That's what happens to me.
I came in and Misty was strangling herself before in her sleep. And I'm like, yeah. I gotta come in and calm her down. So I was like, yeah.
But you did have, it was at the
Hinsdale.
It was at the Hinsdale house.
I don't even remember what happened, but I remember I got the shit scared out of me. I watched was like, oh no, because I can't even remember what happened. I remember thinking someone went downstairs, and I'm telling you, if something dramatic happens, I don't remember it.
Well, I can set the scene because it started happening to me. We were all in the living room.
Shitless though.
Yeah,
I remember that. And I had my little chickens because I had baby chickens that I got at Tractor Supply in New York, and I was like trying to raise them baby chickens. What a ghost!
She was.
Yeah,
She had them in a little
I-
container.
yeah,
But
it just, yeah, I don't remember what happened, but I remember I got the shit scared out of me. Like, I
okay,
was so upset.
this is what happened. We had all decided to go to sleep, right? So we're laying on this couch, and she was at one end with her feet this way, and I was this in my head. You know how you cross, like your legs are here and here. Something moved energetic wise in that room, and I knew something walked through. I knew there was somebody. It was one of those that, you know, the astral projecting or whatever. I could see this thing walking above us, and then it popped me out. And when it did, I looked over at Ashley, and I could see her. She stopped breathing, like she was, and I knew what was happening. I was like, holy shit, she's in one of these and can't get out. And I just, like, it was so weird to watch it from this side of it instead of the other.
Did I tell you what happened?
You said that you just kept, and you started making the same noise.
Yeah.
And I was like, Ashley, get out. And so when she did, she was like, I couldn't get to you. I just knew that I needed to get to you. Da, da, da. It was something that happened in that dream. It was like taking you away or something.
I thought it was a creature or something. Creatures
Wow.
always mess me up, though. That's why, like, it really messes. From a young age, I've always been scared of creatures being around.
Well, the thing of it is I have watched this room because I woke up because the energy shift. I knew that thing was in there. I had been watching it for a while. And when that happened to you, I was like, holy shit, I got to get her out of this. So, you know, I woke her up. She was like, oh, thank you. Automatically. Do you know that the footage, because the girls that we were with, the people we were with were very scientific, right? They had kept it on the room while we were sleeping, and you see this like, I'm not going to say it's an orb, but it was a dark shadow go across the whole room about the time I woke up right after. Like, I felt it go through the room. So that's kind of cool to be able to say that. But that was the time that you got caught. It was like,
out. I remember I was about ready to drive the hell home right then.
Yeah,
I was so scared, but I didn't want to leave the room because I thought it would get me. So that was them.
Yeah. Have you ever been in a situation that it scared you, Pat, that you were like, okay, this that happened in this dream or astral projecting or anything like that, has it scared you to the point of, okay, this alters, like for me, I had to alter my state of my family knows these certain sounds. People that are around me know these certain sounds because they've heard them before. Did you ever have to do anything like that?
My type of astral projecting is different. Like, I do a lot of mine during the day, and because I did it as a kid, right? And I just kept it up. And I mean, I have my report cards from first grade and kindergarten where I had this horrible teacher, and she used to beat me with with a ruler because she said I was always, daydreaming. No, I wasn't. I was astral projecting. I was somewhere else in the world having a better time than I could have in that classroom. And so mine are different. Like one time, let me tell you, this is back in 2019, and I was reading an article about this new virus coming out of a place called Wuhan, China. I mean, no, it was before any scare. It was way back, maybe October, maybe before October 2019. And I looked at that, and all of a sudden, I was in a field, and I was looking in front of me. This is a prophetic dream, and I saw this giant flaming red ball, and the red ball started moving, and as it moved towards me, it was burning everything in sight. And right before it got to me, it's like I was back in my body. And I told my husband, I said, I don't know what this is, but it's going to be bad and it's coming. And a few months later, probably, 4 or 5 months later, is when all of a sudden we start seeing stories about COVID. And so by then, I mean, I already had all the all the supplies. We were ready for this because I knew this was coming. And I'm not the only one in the world. I've read and talked with several talented psychics who have those kinds of experiences that had that particular experience in a different way. One person was said to have looked up at the moon and saw a red hand cross the moon, like God's hand, which was interesting. But yeah, and I'll tell you another one too, and this would be interesting. I'm reading right now, and I know you all too, about people who are projecting the next election. And I just read an article about 5 different astrologers. 4 of them predict Kamala. Kamala? 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 Kamala.
Yeah.
Anyway, and one predicted Trump. So it's going to be interesting to see these kinds of prophecies or predictions also.
I agree. I agree. That is just so crazy, some of those.
One of the things that I had during COVID times, I was doing crafts. So, I was zoning out. I was in my zone. There was something that came into the kitchen, and that's where I did my crafts. But it was dusty, and it had a gas mask on, and it pretty much told me that money was going to crash and all this stuff. And then later on, it was the whole what was that one place that they had a really hot president or leader, and he started fighting for them.
Oh, gosh, it was Russia. Russia invaded
Ukraine.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah.
It was right before that, and I was like, oh my God. But whatever it was like the money's going to be worthless. Technology is going to be worthless. And it freaked me out because I was like, I need to go get cash, because cash is going to be more than this digital, because it's all going to crash. And there was a hot scare for a second. And then later on that came about, and their money was worth nothing. And I was like, wow, that was mine. I get updates when it ain't in my individual life. I'm like, that's great. Let me go help Ukraine now. But anyways,
I just think that it's so crazy how all of us get these different. Do y'all ever think? Now, me and Ashley have talked about this. So, Pat, you got to weigh in on this. Do y'all ever think that we got off on the wrong fucking station, like the bus train?
Yeah.
Like, I think that things should have went a different way. And I'll say that to her sometime. I'm like, we missed our exit somewhere. And the universe always puts you back in there, but it's almost like it doesn't feel right. Like, and I know we're talking about parallel universes and shit like that, or the Mandela effect. Let's just talk about that. CERN, when they fired up CERN, y'all, I that right there goes a different aspect to me. But I do believe there's some people who can jump timelines, and sometimes I feel like our whole damn story has jumped a line.
Sometimes I don't feel like I'm in my own skin, if that makes sense. I feel like I've checked out, and then some days I'll be like, oh wow, I feel like I'm back. But I can probably pinpoint the year that something went, the branch of the tree branched in the wrong direction. That it was, and I'm just like, what in the hell? All this is just like, it was. And looking back now, even Amanda, we talked to Amanda, and we're like, I can probably pinpoint actually the car drive that, and also strings that are attached to other people's. I know we're on random crazy stuff, but I have been talking to someone, and I feel like that person I was very connected to. And there was a choice in a relationship that I was in that I was like, okay, I'm not going down this route. And I seriously feel like it was a rubber band that was snapped back. Like my whole body feels different. And I was driving away from a location, and it was like I severed the ties in that. And that was the beginning of the highway to hell I'm on.
What do you think, Pat? Do you think that there's jumps like that in our life?
Yes, I do. I absolutely do.
You too.
Yeah.
It's got stronger. As I've got older, the feelings have got stronger. I can feel it now. I'm like, oh, this is wrong.
Well, and I think sometimes it literally is a jump in time and space. I'm going to give you an example. One time, it was pitch dark, and I was headed out somewhere. And when I say pitch dark, I was on an old West Virginia road at that time. And this car came out of nowhere. I mean, careening. You don't do that on these old curvy West Virginia roads. And that car, I swear to you, it was supposed to hit me. There's no way this car could not have hit me. And because when it went past the front of my car, it was like this, right? So by the laws of physics, it was turning into me. There was no way for this to miss my car. Not only that, but the car wasn't there. I have never had an experience like that because I could hear it, and it was as solid as you or I. And I mean, I hit my brakes after it was over. That car was not speeding down the highway. That car was not there. So when you talk about these jumps, I swear, I think that was one of them.
So do you think, I want to throw this up
I
too.
got a question. I got
Okay.
stuff to add
So
into
do
it.
you think a Pat and another got hit by that car? Another
in
timeline?
another plane?
Isn't that
They
freaky to think
they
about?
may have. I mean, they may have. But this one, and then I wonder, I mean, we are witches.
Yes.
So how much I've always said, and I get in trouble for this and don't care because I'm over 60, but that witches are those who manifest part of their own reality. So do we have an innate ability to do that if it's not our time to
That's a
pass?
good question. Are we the ones that are causing the jumps? Are we the ones? That's a deep one.
Some
That's
of
a
the
deep
That's
jumps
one.
right.
except it
Mhm.
was mine. I think I've cheated death a few times. I have cheated
Lord, we
death
gotta
in
knock
high
on some
school.
wood around here.
I know
Knock
there
on
was a
some wood.
situation I should have passed away in high school, and then in my early 20s, I just knew death was waiting for me to mess up.
You want to know that? Yeah. Okay.
And then there was another time that I knew I cheated death, and it was supposed to be around. I think my grandmother did because they really seriously, like the grandmother that is the wart remover. She was in a really bad wreck, and they announced her dead, and then she took a breath. Like that's how, and it was on Old Country Road. So
Mhm.
that was a situation that has been through our family, and she lasted and foretold her death. And I've
Yep.
talked about that before, but
Mhm.
we've also talked about you thought you were supposed to die at a certain time.
Yeah, like I knew when I was young, I knew I wouldn't make it past 18. I
This
knew
is
it.
so crazy. I
Yeah.
thought I was gonna die at 42.
Isn't that
Could
crazy?
yes, I was convinced I was going to die at 42. Let me ask, ladies, could this be past life? Could we have died in a recent life at the age of 18, at 42, and at the age that you thought? It could have been a couple of past lives that you have connected with. You see what I'm saying?
It
Mm.
could
I
have.
don't know. These are interesting questions.
I didn't know what to do with myself when I didn't die, and that sounds weird.
Yeah, it's like
It's
borrowed
really,
time.
it's like,
well, shit, might as well mess up everything
yeah.
now. It's like this is this is in the extras department. Yeah.
I'm telling you, it was so weird until like when I turned 25, I was like having nervous breakdowns because I was like, what
Maybe
now?
your body was in shock. It was still here.
Yeah, no, seriously. And then everything calmed down. It wasn't 40, it wasn't all these other numbers. It was 25 because something was like, holy crap. This is
Mine was 42. How
Yes.
weird is that? 42. And I lived my whole life,
So
and
much to
I
look
was
forward to.
well, it was like this, when I was hitting 40, it's like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Well, you already knew because you wouldn't go out
I
on
had
your
a few times.
birthday.
Yeah, on my
And
birthday.
you were like, I'm
but
gonna die. Like
I haven't hit 40 yet, guys, so I'm kind of
No,
nervous.
but
I'm like,
mine
well,
had-
she's coming around the corner. Like,
do you, do you know
this
if
was
you
my
met,
own experience.
if you met me before like turning 18 and stuff like that, I was not the same person I am now. I had a lot of issues. I was depressed. I felt like that was another life. That was another person. And then when I got over that, it was so weird. I don't know what to tell you. I would always just say, I'm not going to live past this age. I always knew. And then, like I told you, I had that crazy time. And then, my life after that, I've been fine. I don't know what happened, but that's crazy that all three of us, we've never talked about this
Is
before.
insane.
Yes.
Yeah, I was convinced, man. I was so
Yes.
nervous, from 40 to 42. I'm like, and then I was weirded out. Did you feel weird?
Yes.
yeah,
I
Well,
felt
you do.
so weird
I
that I
was,
didn't die.
yeah, I
That's
felt
what-
like, man,
That's what we were like, well, we're
I-
still here. What do we do now?
I knew I was going to die so much that I put a DNA kit in my car glove
Yes.
box with my hair, my fingerprints, any distinguishing body areas and stuff. I had it in a folder in my glove box because I wanted to make sure my family would have closure when they found my body. Like, that's how bad it was. Like, I knew. I was like, it's coming, man. It's coming. It was
Isn't
a
that
child
weird?
identification kit I got, and I put all that information in there. Yeah.
That is so weird that
So-
all of us are like, we're just, and it's so, it was just something you had accepted, You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? It's
What
something you
what
just
you know what I did?
Mhm.
I was older, so, my mom at that time, she was still alive. She lived until I was 46. But anyway, what I did, because I was an adult and I had 2 children, I had more life insurance than you could shake a stick at,
Oh my
because I wanted, when I dropped dead, I wanted my children to be able to, be good in,
right.
as far as money until they grew up, so, yeah.
That's so
Misty
crazy.
is my beneficiary, so it makes me nervous because especially when we work at the same place, and like you said something, and it was so uncomfortable because everybody was like I said, Misty said something like, "Yeah, it's all coming to me," in a little bit, and like the people at work were like concerned how cold hearted she was. Like,
I
we're
was
gonna
just
get the
joking though.
money.
Yeah.
If
Like,
something happened to you, she'd lose her mind. Let me
oh
tell
Not
you
no.
something.
spending my fucking money. Like,
My husband's already said, like, he
pay
tells
for it,
everybody,
yeah.
he's already talked to my son. They've had these talks, and they're like, your mama, if somebody dies close to her, I get so angry that I have all, yeah, it's like I won't let myself mourn. And I go completely opposite of what I am because it's like I'm angry. Like I should have been able to
Right.
stop it. I should have been. I take it on myself. So you're right, Pat. I want to be loony as loony can be, man. So Ashley,
Misty will be throwing $100 bills at strippers.
I will.
She'll be
I
like,
will.
"Yeah, yeah."
I'm gonna be crazier and shit, man. I'm just letting
Sweetheart.
everybody
Oh,
know. Okay,
oh,
Ashley, you had a
Go
video
on, but
that
the
you want to
video
yeah.
tell.
is, how do you feel about the cinnamon beginning of the month ritual? As in, they put cinnamon outside of their door and they want prosperity and happiness and things like that. And some of them leave it for a full month. Now, this is plain cinnamon. So, how do you guys feel about that? Misty brought up a good point because me and Misty live together, obviously. But she was saying that cinnamon's actually like cats are allergic to cinnamon, so maybe not
They're
necessarily
not good for cinnamon.
grounded cinnamon. So
I have my own views on this, Pat. You give it. What you think?
Uh, I I I think that when we're trying to bring good into the home, that it shouldn't be a once a month thing, to begin with. Number 2, I'm like you, I'm very careful. I've got 2 cats, 2 dogs, at what I do use that they can get into, right? Um, so I mean, if someone feels that it works for them and they're not doing harm to their animals, do what works for you. For me, I look at prosperity and happiness as an everyday job, so to speak, with energy. And so that's how I approach that.
That's a good point. So mine is a little bit different because once it was on TikToks, like the videos on TikToks, and that's every witch on the first of the month. If you ain't a good witch, you don't have your cinnamon. You don't have that. And I hate that people say that, but that I've come across those videos. I have never resonated with those videos. That's not the way I do energy
No.
work. It doesn't mean it might not be good for somebody who loves the damn cinnamon. But I was on, and we will have her for a guest coming up. Is Patience show, and she's the one that
Mm,
brought that up. She said, "What does witches most have as a familiar is a cat, right?" She
mhm,
said that is cinnamon can be toxic to cats. Why would you be? And they can a lot of times they'll blow it into their house.
mhm,
That's a problem I have too, because when you have, let's say you had a bad month, right? And you're blowing things in that house instead of sweep. I'm all about sweeping that energy
they
out.
vacuum before the
mhm.
one that I'm sharing. They
Mhm.
vacuum before, then they blow it inside there, and they leave it for the whole month.
Yeah, no, I'm not jiving with that. You got to get that shit out. I'm talking about open windows. You got to, if
Mhm.
you want to do your salt, whatever, and you push it to the ground. I push it to the ground because it's got to absorb any negativity. If you've had a bad month, why am I going to throw stuff back on top of it and let that shit sit there? That's got to get out of my house so I can welcome in the abundance. Also, I have a cauldron, and we set it at our front stoop. Like if I really need to work that month, or
Right.
like workings, not work as in
Mhm.
a job. But if I got to do my workings that month, I feel the energy's off or whatever, I'll put it in that cauldron. That's where it sets. Nobody knows it's there until I just told the world, because it's
Mhm.
out near greenery, like our
Right.
hostas and stuff. So I do that. That's my thing, and then it sets, it can sit there and it can
Mhm.
build that energy. But
Eh,
I'm like we're all different, so what do you think
well,
about cinnamon blowing?
yeah.
The cinnamon blowing, I recently got very conscious about what is bad for animals, because apparently grapes are bad for your dogs. Do not feed grapes to
Hmm.
your dogs. I did not know that. I just thought it was chocolate. It's avocado, grapes, and there was something else. But anyways, especially Dachshunds, because it is poison to them. And I was like, "Oh, here, buddy," and I fed him one. I was freaking out for 24 hours, thinking, "Oh God!" After I googled it randomly, but a lot of people will give them grapes, like I said, and they'll pass away from the toxicity. But so, how you could eat a cookie for the alternative, you could eat a cinnamon cookie and meditate on it and thinking like that. Also, mine I always did is I buy a shitload of those Christmas globes that are see-through, and you can put whatever you want of that and put it near your door. I had one that I would go through, and I would open the top, smell it, and roll it around. You can use a jar, anything like that. But seeing how now in Christmas time they have those, like, the globes or whatever, the prosperity globes, those are very common. You can actually buy one at Walmart that has a pine cone in it, just random stuff, and nobody's going to know the difference. So if you just have, like, globe up there and roll it around,
You
like
could do
you
a
said,
shake jar.
Yeah.
We've
You
done
can do a cinnamon broom too, and
Ah.
keep it near the door. And also, the thing I do is I keep a nice big piece of black tourmaline near the door, and then I have what they call a witch ball, which it's supposed to turn. If you have evil trying to enter, and I have all these strings in it, and it's supposed to, capture, if you will, the negative energy. So I just like to have that out there and be prepared. And as far as positive work, I really feel, again, I'm an energy witch. I if I'm feeling good and I'm putting out a lot of good energy, I feel that energy around me and in my home. And I have crystals, as you can tell, all over the place. I use a lot of crystals in my home, and that's how I do it. And again, if somebody wants to do it, fine, but don't be telling other practitioners that this is right up there with Biden being on Charlemagne the God, and telling him that you ain't, you know what, unless you vote for him. I mean, that's what it's saying. It's saying that you can't be a witch if
If you don't
you don't blow cinnamon through your door, which is absolutely ridiculous.
it
And
is.
it's going to depend on your path to begin with as to whether you would pick that particular practice up. So it's so silly. Don't tell another practitioner what to do. They know what to do. If their magic is manifesting, they're doing it right.
That's
And
true.
then if you follow everybody that says if you're not a witch, you won't be doing this. Good God, I ain't got time to have a job. I'll be out there throwing. I can't afford the herbs you want me to spread then, okay? Because
No.
I'm like all these things. So it's whatever goes with the person, whatever feels correct with that. So we are closing in on time, I do think. So I'm gonna go ahead and tell you a little spell of how to actually get yourself in the zone to hopefully talk to someone in your dreams, since this is all dream related. So, one way to do this is, now this might not work on the first time because people on the other realm don't have a watch. Okay, so one thing that I do when I want to talk to someone that has passed away in my dreams, I make sure that I have my protection there. So whether that is rock salt, whatever you feel correct, sage, however you feel most protected, have that by your bedside, even under your bed and things like that. But and only allow welcomed spirits in. Lavender is a way to kind of get yourself comfortable and things like that. There's also mugwort, but don't drink or any of these things. Herbs, make sure that they are, edible safe. Do not eat that. Just have that by your bedside, and have a picture of your loved one that you want to correspond or, communicate with or whatever, and look at it and really talk from the heart. Do a protection prayer and believe and say that, please, if the timing is correct, please come to me in my dreams, and I would love to have a conversation with you, things like that. Make it very personal for yourself, because like I always say, if you are going to sit there and listen to everything I'm going to do, then your person that knows you very well is not going to come about because they'll be like, that does not sound like them. So, like I said, have a very intimate moment with the photo or whichever and talk to how you want to talk to them. And it might take a few nights, things like that. Even if it is a little message, as in you see a spirit animal that you knew corresponds with them, instead of actually having that conversation, because, like I said, it's kind of difficult to communicate to your own loved ones. And they have a different ebb and flow in the afterlife themselves. So that is, can I please have a message or speak with them? So always make sure you close that circle and have your protection, as in this is the only person that I want to speak to and will allow to come through.
That's good. All right, guys. Next week, we will hopefully have a guest, and we are so excited. Please check us out on scarefestradio.com, and we will see you on the spooky side. Bye.
Bye.